Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Wow. That's the closest I can come to doing the Penn State lion roar thing, which, that was terrible and annoying, which means I probably pretty much nailed it.
Nailed it. Totally nailed it. It is Penn State week, and we will talk about that game, Tom. But since it is not a rivalry, let's first start out with other things. Mainly the recruiting that is going on right now at Ohio State. And even though there are no commitments happening, there is an incredible amount of noise and innuendo. And this happens every year, but I don't know that it has ever happened like it did yesterday. It started early in the day with just some banter on Twitter, and there's some William Johnson stuff out of Michigan, because I saw Michigan fans, Tom, believe it or not, aren't too happy about what's going on right now with Ohio State recruiting. And Will Johnson is the 5-star corner out of Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Michigan fans feel like, they got a really good shot at him. And then there is some more chatter with about Domani Jackson, the number 1 corner in the nation out of Mater Dei. He's the number 3 player overall. Michigan fans also felt like they had a really good shot with him. There's some crystal balls rolling in for Jackson to Ohio State. Now he is the crystal ball leader. And then later in the evening, Quinn Ewers, the number 1 quarterback prospect in the nation, number 2 player overall out of South Lake Carroll, Texas, decommits from Texas. And there was a run on crystal balls for Ewers to Ohio State. And now it's almost like that could pop at any moment that he will be committing to Ohio State. And a ton of stuff happened yesterday. Nothing happened, but a lot of stuff happened. And it's something that the 22 class has been teasing on Twitter over the last week or so, saying, they're going to break the internet. And it's like, yeah, high school kids having fun. But then all heck did break loose yesterday.
Yeah, it was. I was trying to explain to my wife like what was happening, and this is one of these times, and it's like I'm trying to explain to her, and she's like, "I know you know what you're talking about, but you're not making any sense right now." I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy! I cannot believe how much is happening." She's like, "Did they get any commitments?" It's like, "Well, no. No." So they're like, they're going to like tomorrow. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. Like at some point, it seems like probably yes, and I will just throw out, we are not the recruiting folks on the Buckeye Scoop staff. There are all sorts of great recruiting insiders that we have on our staff, and I'm not going to step on their information. You can find a whole bunch of their stuff. Mark Givler and Bill the Bank Green will be releasing a Gives in the Bank podcast on Friday. Absolutely listen to that one. We can tell you what they're talking, what they're hearing, but you might as well hear it straight from them. So, it seems as if some stuff is going to happen. And Alex Gleitman has been all over it on our insiders board. I mean, listen, if you are listening to this conversation and you're like, I wish they were talking more about college football players who are not going to play college football in 3 years, friends, BuckeyeScoop.com is the place for you, because that is a community full of people. Like if you were someone who like shows up at the first game or just turns the TV on for the first games, like, oh, I wonder who the starting quarterback is this year. Like, no, that's not something you need to do. If you are someone who is worried about recruits 2 years out, yes, this is the site you should be a member of, because we spend a lot of time talking about that stuff. So just get that plug in there early for you. You've got Quinn Ewers, number 2 overall, Domani Jackson, number 3 overall, Will Johnson, number 7 overall, Caleb Burton, wide receiver, number 10 overall from Del Valle, Texas. It has been reported that he and Ewers may be planning on going to college at the same spot, which if one of them is going to Ohio State, the other one might go to Ohio State. Sean Murphy, the linebacker, number 17 overall. There wasn't really any news for him last night, but he's been someone who Ohio State has been linked to pretty closely. And then Zach Rice, offensive tackle, number 29 overall, another 5-star out of Virginia. He's someone who Ohio State's been linked to. They already have Gabe Powers, number 33. So that's, and then after the Ewers news broke, people are saying, well, Ohio State's also been in on Malik Murphy, who is the number 2 pro-style quarterback in the country. Ewers is the number 1. You think they could get both? It's like, all right, guys, settle down. It's going to be okay. If they only get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the nation for the class of 2022, it's probably all right. They will probably survive with only one of those 2 if they also have, a 5-star tackle, a 5-star wide receiver, 2 5-star corners, like 5-star linebacker. Like Ryan Day can probably scrape something together out of that if some or all of that happens.
And then there's also 5-star St. Louis receiver Luther Burden, who committed to Oklahoma recently, who a lot of people don't really think that's going to stick. And, we'll see how that goes. Ohio State has done very well in St. Louis, and we'll see if that continues. But so that's been your recruiting minute here on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. And as Tom said, if you want more of this, there is plenty more from Gives in the Bank and the Ask the Insiders board. We're just touching on it to tell you that there is a bunch of stuff going on right now. And sounds like it's going to be a November to remember. I just coined that. Put it on a shirt, Tom, with players' pictures on them so that we can take advantage of their name and image and likeness, since they will soon get to. So why shouldn't we also reap some of those sweet, sweet rewards?
I think the December to remember is a big bow on a Lexus, if I remember my seasonal TV commercials correctly. So maybe November to remember is a big bow on top of a 5-star prospect of some sort. I mean, that's I don't think Ryan Day cares how they're wrapped, if there's a bow or not. But if there is, if it makes a car better, it almost certainly would have to make a football player better, right?
Totally. Like, you walk out, you look out in the driveway, and there's a 5-star left tackle with a big bow. You're like, oh my gosh,
it's just what I wanted. How did you know?
And that's when the wife is like, no, that's mine.
Oh.
You're like, what? Mm-hmm. And this has turned.
You might say he just got blindsided. Oh wow, that was so good. Mm-hmm. That worked on so many levels.
Tom, it did not work on any level.
Oh, come on.
It was terrible because I did not get to say it. All right. So let's talk about football, like actual football, not signing day 14 months from now for the 2022 class, which looks like, again, it's going to be pretty insane. The 2021 class is also doing fairly well. If you guys are interested in that, that's also going on, even though there are no visits for anybody other than sneaking onto campus as groups of players with driving around in vans with their families, just looking at buildings and stuff. Tom, this week we talked to, gosh, no way I'm going to remember everybody. So I'm just going to throw out random names. You tell me yes or no. Ryan Day, Justin Fields, Josh Myers, walk-on former club football star Chris Booker, Marcus Hooker, Garrett Wilson we talked to like Tuesday, if that was this week or last week.
This week,
and the weeks run together, Tom. And then today, of course, we had 10 or 15 minutes with Ryan Day. Ryan Day did not give any clarity on whether or not Chris Olave was going to play, although he said he practiced well this week. So
when you say he didn't give any clarity, you mean he maybe did give some clarity?
I don't want him to know that he did. That's why I'm saying it this way. He refused to say if he would play because he said, well, we'll have an availability report, but he practiced well. So do not read into any of those words. In fact, forget I even said anything.
And if you were the type of person who was hanging on the news of whether Chris Olave would be willing to play this or able to play this week, that's also something we had on our Insider Sport. Had a great insider practice report on Tuesday. So could have saved yourself a couple of sleepless nights if you're the type of person that is worried about that. $12 a month, that seems worth it for a good night's sleep. I mean, as someone with kids, I would pay much more than $12 a night for a good night's sleep. So just saying. You also missed Sean Wade and Nick Petit-Frere, I believe, on the list of players we talked to this week.
Tom, let's talk about Nick Petit-Frere because I went back and watched just him yesterday in the game. Let's not go crazy. I watched the game. I didn't go to campus and just follow him around. He was awesome in this game, and I'd recommend anybody to go through there and just rewatch him. He had one play all day where I thought maybe he didn't get the win, and basically what it was is, he's the right tackle. The run was to the left. He had to catch up with the 3 tech, who was, had him a couple yards towards the play side, and the 3 tech was like slanting that way anyway, so he could never catch up to him, and that guy made the tackle. Like, play after that, or a couple plays after that, it was almost the same thing, except he did catch up to the 3-tech and put him down. And then another couple plays after that, put another guy down. He was really, really good throughout this game, which is great to see. Obviously, this week, though, Ryan Day talked today about it's a much stiffer test than it is with Shaka Toney and Jason Owe, who are really, really good athletes. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does as a really good athlete himself. And he's got great feet and he's stronger than ever. There were times he's just like if it was just an edge rusher or a linebacker, he'd just hit him with one arm and that was it. And then it'd be like, leave me alone. All right. Yes, I wanted to play football really bad. Not right now. Okay. Just leave me alone. Not right now. And so I'm looking forward to what he does this week, because as long as Justin Fields gets time, it's going to be really hard for Ohio State to lose this game.
Yeah, if Justin Fields has time, that means Justin Fields either can scramble and pick up yardage, or Justin Fields can buy time with his feet and have guys get open downfield. I mean, this is the strength of this Penn State defense is the defensive ends. I mean, it's the line in general, but specifically the defensive ends. Toney and Owe are probably the two best players in this defense right now, with Micah Parsons out, with Jesse Luketa out for the first half with a targeting penalty. Those are two linebackers that they're going to be missing in the first half. You know, the corners are okay. They're not fantastic. They're okay. There are some questions at safety. Lamont Wade is, he made some plays against Ohio State last year, but you can sometimes make some plays on him. And if Justin Fields has time, I think if Justin Fields has time, you're looking at a 40-something point, at least, Ohio State score on Saturday night. I don't know if they'll be able to consistently give him time. I think Penn State's edge rushers are good enough that they may be able to get enough pressure to kind of, just that may lop one touchdown off Ohio State's score, say. Just, you have to throw a ball away, you take a sack, whatever, that kills a possession, and you don't score a touchdown there. But yeah, if they can give Justin Fields time, it could be real impressive Saturday night.
Yeah, and they'll have to work on those twists and stunts, because that was one of the things that gave them trouble against Nebraska. And, you'll see more of that against Penn State. I also thought it was interesting, Josh Myers talking about how he doesn't want – did we already talk about this in the last show, how he doesn't want Justin Fields getting hit? And then we also talked to Fields yesterday, though, about are you getting hit after the play? Are people grabbing your ankles? And he said, yeah, Nebraska was doing it a little bit, and it happened to him last year. I left out the part, and I wrote about it today. I left out the part where he said that mainly happens against, I don't want to say the worst teams, but it happens against the worst teams. The good teams don't necessarily grab you and twist you like that. It's the bad teams who do that, who are looking for an advantage. And Josh Myers said that anytime they don't want Justin Fields, he doesn't want Justin Fields carrying the ball, but anytime he gets tackled, the offensive line is going to be there to pick him up. And so that's something to just keep an eye on in this one, because I don't think you're going to stop Shaka Toney and Jason Owe, even though Owe, I didn't really see much from him against Indiana, but these Penn State defensive ends have a way against Ohio State of making some plays, as we've seen in the past. So I'm just kind of expecting a little bit of trouble from those guys, just because they are elite athletes. And for me, that's going to be the test of the entire game. Tom, where else? Because we talked to, as you said, Malik Hooker or Marcus Hooker, and those safeties. Ryan Day said today he thought they played well after those first couple of series. Listening to Marcus Hooker, he just kept talking about how he's just overthinking everything, and how he has to think about not thinking so much, basically. And it was just all of this mental, cerebral stuff. And I just want to be like, he has to get to the point where he's no longer thinking and he's just playing. Except you can't really just shut it off, but the more natural it all becomes, the better it all becomes. And I don't know if this is the week for him.
But this is one of those things where the more experience you have, the more you've seen, the more film you've watched, the more you see, you have that game kind of slowing down for you. Justin Fields talked about that this week, that the game has like slowed down for him since he started at Ohio State for the first time, that You're not kind of like looking around like, okay, where's the safety? Where's a, and for Hooker, it's not, okay, where's the slot guy going? Where's the outside guy going? Who do I go? You've seen it, you recognize things, and it's just, you can just kind of like, you recognize it and you go, and you don't have to spend a lot of time processing. It's just like, okay, this is what's happening and this is what I do. I know that already. I don't have to think about what to do. I do it and I go. And that's the difference between a 2019 Ohio State defense, where you had guys who you just played fast. You went, you did your thing and you knew what you're doing and you went, and a 2018 defense where there was a little too much thinking, and that, a little bit too much thinking can just cost you a step. And when you're playing teams that are, Ryan Day's line last year was the talent is equated. When this doesn't matter when you're playing Rutgers, this doesn't matter when you're playing Maryland. This matters when, instead of having a, 4 touchdowns better team just purely on talent, all of a sudden you have like a 1 touchdown better team. And then there you have one step where, you were a little slow, or you took a false step one way. And that can be the difference between making a tackle for a 10-yard gain and KJ Hamler, splitting the safeties and going 90 something yards in 2018. I mean, that's it. That's the difference. So yeah, this is a game where, the pool gets pretty deep for Marcus Hooker pretty early this year. This is not a game that you probably would have loved to have him play as his second start. Cause there's, you got a lot of stuff to think about, and the Ohio State pass rush is going to have to help him out a little bit in a way that, that they did last year. You saw the pass rush get home a bunch last year, not just against Penn State, but just throughout the season, where all of a sudden you didn't have to cover for 5 seconds, you had to cover for 2.5 seconds. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure on Marcus Hooker this week to figure it out. And that's not necessarily fair, but welcome to being a starting football player.
I think, and you had Penn State beat writer on early in the week on the Morning Scoop, kind of agreeing with what I think of this Penn State receiver core, where Jahan Dotson is almost the only playmaker, the only guy that really concerns you. He was the guy the Buckeyes were after really hard, trying to land him a couple of years ago. But the other guys are all chain movers, and so I'd say they're good matchups for the corners at Ohio State. They're favorable matchups for the corners, and you would assume for Marcus Hooker and helping them out. Who even knows how deep they'll throw the ball, especially when one of the things the Buckeyes run into a lot is they get schemed to not throw the ball deep because they don't think they'll be able to last long against the Ohio State defensive ends. So you're just looking for quick throws and slants and ways to just not get your quarterback hit. And we saw that last week with Nebraska, where there wasn't a lot of drop back and just waiting. And I think Penn State will do it more because they do that more. But I don't know how much, will they do it as much as they did last week? I don't know. We see so often where it's just a whole bunch of quick screens trying to just not get hit, and which is unfortunate for the Ohio State defensive ends, who are looking to make some plays this week after being fairly quiet last week. I mean, Jonathan Cooper was kind of responsible for a fumble. Adrian Martinez had the ball and got hit, and then eventually lost it. Zach Harrison had a sack. Darian Henry Young had a sack, sort of. He was there when a play happened. So you can't really count on him per se to do it. But I think as a group, I'd like to see more from these Ohio State defensive ends this week, and they'll have more of a chance this week, I think.
Yeah, you have to, and they need to get a little bit of pressure in the passing game. But I think the bigger thing is they have to hold up in that run game. I think, and specifically in the quarterback run game.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I think is going to be one of the deciding factors. Does Sean Clifford run for 119 yards or whatever he did against Indiana? That's one kind of game. If Sean Clifford finishes where he finished last year's Ohio State game, which was 6 carries for 6 yards, that's a very different kind of game. Because I mean, if you remember that game, Ohio State was up big, and then Clifford got hurt. Will Levis came in, and all of a sudden he was able to move the ball largely on the ground. Can Penn State move the ball on the ground with that quarterback run? Because they lost Journey Brown for the season with a medical condition. They lost Noah Cain on the first play of the game last week against Indiana. So then you get Devin Ford and a couple freshmen, and that's this is. I mean, we talked about the moment being pretty big for Marcus Hooker as his second start. Like, okay, now you got a real young running back core. Like, are you really going to be able to lean on them to be consistent chain movers? Like, that's not probably going to be a consistent way for them to move the ball throughout the night and be able to keep the clock moving and keep the ball away from the Ohio State offense. So, yeah, you're gonna have to have Sean Clifford picking up. He doesn't have to run for 60 yards, but he's got to be able to, he's got to pick up 6 yards on first down, or, on 2nd and 8, he pick up 5-6 yards, get it to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. So you have some options. So you're not in that 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 kind of situation, because they have Pat Fryermuth. The wide receivers are okay, but they're not fantastic. Penn State does not want to be behind schedule. That's going to be a big problem for them in a way that it won't necessarily be for Ohio State, because Ohio State, just the passing offense is it's just going to be flat out better. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. Penn State cannot get behind schedule on Saturday.
I think you're going to see Sean Clifford almost have be like the JT Barrett of this game, where he may run the ball 20 times, 25 times just to get something going and to move the chains. And then the X factor will be, can he then beat Ohio State with his arm? And sometimes he will be able to, but he threw 2 really bad interceptions last week against Indiana. One was on a screen where he just tossed the ball up, hoping it found a running back who was on the other side of a bunch of linemen, and it found a defender instead. The other time was just another bad overthrow for an easy interception. And this all happened in the first half, and they eventually climbed out of it, but they still lost. And those 2, I mean, they more than doubled up Indiana in yards and time of possession, and still, Tom, I don't know how he does
all the meaningful stats.
Well, no, and that's the thing, and that's why they are meaningless, because in the end, James Franklin still found a way to have his team lose, which is something we've seen in the past, where there may just be one decision is all it takes. But if it happens, several times a year or a couple times a year, it's hard to ignore. And when it happens, you're like, well, yes, this happened to James Franklin. I can totally understand it. And even though James Franklin said he talked to, he expressed, like, don't score, your guy still scored. And so that's still on you for allowing that to happen. And then, you could have maybe gone for 2 against Indiana at the end there to just nip everything in the bud, which he did not choose to do, and just stayed, well, let's just do what coaches do. Let's make the decision that every coach would make, and let's kick the extra point and then just play defense. And yeah, that is right. That should have helped. That should have worked. It worked for most of the second half until it didn't. But you wonder, is there a point in this game where, if it's close, do you just wait for him to make a mistake? The answer to that is no, Ryan Day will not. But there is always that, just let's see what happens with James Franklin just screwing something up. And really, if Ohio State is going to lose, they're going to have to screw stuff up mainly. Like, that's why the focus this week has been on turnovers and protecting the ball. And I'm not flummoxed by what James Franklin did last week, but it's just another example of a game that he should have won that he lost.
He just is constantly the control group in a scientific study of college football coaches being too conservative. It's like, okay, well, when in doubt, punt. When in doubt, don't go for 2. When in doubt, play it safe, play it conservative. And, Jim Tressel could do that, because Jim Tressel had like superior manpower to everyone he played. So he can just kind of follow basically his own version of the plan to win. And it was fine. This weekend, this is the time that James Franklin needs to not be giving away possessions, not be kicking field goals on 4th and 2, not be, not be punting on 4th and 3 at midfield. Like, you got to go. You saw that from Ryan Day last week. Ryan Day went for it on 4th and 1 inside his own, 30, 35. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to trust your players to be able to make a play. This is a game where I don't think that Penn State probably feels super fantastic about their defense's chance to hold Ohio State under 30 points. So this is a game where you have to steal possessions. You got to try an onside kick. fake a punt. Just go for it on if it's 4th and 1 at the 30-yard line, especially in Ohio State territory, go for it. It's 4th and 2. If it's 4th and 3, like field goals are not going to win you this game if you're Penn State. Like you gotta score. You gotta score touchdowns. So is he going to be willing to do that? Has he learned from past games where he's played it a little too, conservative, a little too safe? Maybe. I will. The next time I think, wow, James Franklin is really being aggressive. That's impressive. Like that, it's going to be the first time I think that.
Yeah, and this is one of those games where Ohio State, if they end every possession with the kick, they're going to win. And assuming that's not every.
I was going to say that didn't work out great in 2016, but
yes, no, well, that's true. But
with a kick that goes across the line of scrimmage, maybe.
Yes, as long as it gets past without getting hit. But if nothing goes wrong, then nothing can go wrong. And basically, with this Ohio State offense, and I start like 31 points as the baseline for the Buckeyes in every game, and then where do you move it? And I don't know how much you move it down in this game. I can see struggling, and it's like 27 for Ohio State, and they kick a couple of field goals because they can't punch it in for whatever reason. That's still 5 scoring drives out of 12, 13 possessions, something like that. So it's not terrible. But then it's like, well, can Penn State then score 28 or 31? And I think if Penn State scores 31, then Ohio State's probably scoring more as well, because they're going to be more aggressive and won't just be settling. So if like Ryan Day feels like this is a bit of a shootout, then he's going to ramp it up more. If it's one of those low scoring things, then maybe he's comfortable kicking a couple of field goals. I think he plays to maybe a little bit of what Penn State is doing. If there's like the 2007 Michigan game where there's no threat from the Michigan offense, and you just we're okay. We don't need to risk anything. Just hold the ball, don't fumble, don't give Penn State any opportunities, and we'll get out of here alive, because that is the goal of every game, is just win it, especially on the road. If it's 3-0, you take it and you get out of Dodge. But again, if Fields has time, if he's not sacked like 4 or 5 times and the running backs aren't turning it over, I was told that there are some fumbles on the ground in practice this week. And so as long as there are no turnovers and Fields has time, I'm with you, Tom. It's like 42, 45, something like that.
Yeah, I picked Ohio State 35-24. And that's, I'm figuring that if they get up a little bit, they will just get to the get out of Dodge portion. They might be up 21-10 at the half, and then kind of dial it back and not be too aggressive. Just basically get to the, okay, keep the clock moving. If Penn State's not moving the ball, get out of, like you said, get out of Dodge. This is very much a NCAA tournament mindset, like survive and advance. Just there is so much crap this year you cannot account for. Like, don't worry about the style points. Win, move on. That's it. Like, and I think that's sort of the mindset that Ryan Day has taken as well. Like, there's so much stuff that's out of your control. There's so much stuff that's weird with going on the road this year. I mean, Ryan Day talked about that on Thursday as well. Like, there are all different protocols. They have the whole hotel bought out for themselves. They have, they're going to be like getting dressed at the hotel and then busing over to the stadium and then like throwing their pads on at the stadium. Like this is a very, very different kind of road trip. They have personnel who are driving instead of flying, specifically so they can space out more on the airplane. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's new and different and weird. And, last weekend's game was strange, but they had at least gone to the stadium a few times and practiced there and sort of knew what they were going to be playing in front of. I don't think we have not heard anything about them taking practice road trips to Pennsylvania to get ready for this game. So this is all going to be new, and it's all going to be different. It's kind of the first time for everyone in a lot of ways. So there's just a lot of stuff you can't totally be prepared for. There's a lot of stuff that they may have to deal with this weekend that they are not, they don't know they're going to have to deal with it yet. That you could have a positive test on a Saturday morning, and then your travel party is your travel party. You've got your 74 guys. He talked about needing a pair and a spare at every position. Well, if your long snapper test positive for COVID, or your free safety test positive for COVID, or whatever, like, well, next man up. Like there's not you do not have your full roster available to you to just be able to throw whoever you want in there. It's just, you got who you got and you got to make it work.
He mentioned that it's terrifying as the head coach waiting for those tests Saturday morning, and they'll be over there when they do the tests. And I don't know. Do you do Justin Fields first just so you can breathe a little bit? Is that how it goes? It's like, Justin, come in here. And then we'll just wait. And then finally you breathe once you find out. And then you're like, okay, bring everybody else in. We can do this now. We can handle this. We've got Justin, even though, he's not just a one-man team, but I would think until him for sure, there's going to be a ton of stress. But with how important everybody is, like, it would be stressful to lose Thayer Munford and, anybody on that line. And it just has to be so helpless. Like, you've done everything you can. You talk about it every single day as the coach. And he tells his guys, look, we can't get lazy with this. We can't get comfortable with it. And it's the same for the coaches. And then you're just waiting for the tests. And you see, we talked to him today about Nebraska and Wisconsin and how much he feels terrible for Nebraska because they didn't do anything wrong and they don't get to play this week. And he thought that they should have been able to play. But UT Chattanooga, I think, is who Nebraska had been in contact with this. He felt like they should have been allowed to play. And that's just another crazy aspect of 2020 when he said there's a lot of sleepless nights, not much, there's no good sleep at night because just everything. And so people are asking him, like I even asked him, like, well, would you feel comfortable bringing in an FCS team on short notice to play, like with all of the protocols? And, one of the things he kept saying today is like, I'm trying to worry about third down, which is something Urban Meyer used to, like, I'm trying to figure out how to get first downs. And he's right, though. You're trying to, how do we beat Penn State this week? And then through all of this, people are coming up to him like, Coach, we're going to have to get dressed at the hotel. We'll get on the bus. The meals this way are going to be, we'll have to do split meals. And then on the plane, everything's going to be split. And it's just then you're like, okay. And then the testing is this time. And so that's when the acid buildup will really get going. And it's just a remarkable time for coaches. And I know there's a lot of people who think coaching or maybe coaches are overpaid. Like, man, these guys are earning it this year.
There are some coaches who are overpaid, but if you are making it work this year, man, you are earning every penny. Fair it is, point. This is, you have seen, I think, the difference between a well-coached program and a not well-coached program. I mean, you've seen that probably over the years. You see, when one guy comes in and just immediately everything changes, like, well, okay, that guy is earning his money. And then you've got plenty of guys who are, I don't know, let's pick someone at random. I don't know, Tom Harmon at Texas, for example, who's making a fat stack of money, has a ton of resources, and just cannot get out of his own way, cannot stop tripping over himself. And, everyone's getting paid a lot. Some guys are earning it, some guys aren't. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a year when all of this, like every element of your program, like top to bottom, is going to get put to the test. Your ops guys like Quinn Temple, Volt. I mean, all of those guys who have to deal with all just the little minutia of going and having everything set up and figuring out every possible contingency and every possible failure point and avoiding them and figuring all that stuff out, figuring out how to have Justin Fields like literally in the boy in a bubble through on the airplane to get him there and have him be
exit
okay.
Row?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exit row will be fine.
Yes. He's just spinning around, rolling around.
The Sky Mall says moops. Yes. But all the stuff you have to figure out. And like, if you forget something, if you overlook something, like that can be it. It can be as simple as, well, your quarterback had a negative test at Wisconsin and I don't know where he got it, but he got it. And now everyone has it. And now the season is ruined. Like, that's it. That's all it takes. So this is real high stakes. And this is putting every college football program under like a real hard stress test this year. And you're going to find out who breaks and who makes it.
Well, and the Big Ten did everything they could to give teams extra weeks. And it wasn't, it was just an impossibility. They did everything they could, Tom. They put a schedule together, but it wouldn't have worked.
That a fact. That's a fact. And just to clear it up, the Big Ten did say that they're not allowing any non-conference games this year. Like that was like the COPC today, Thursday, came out and said, like, not specifically in response to the Nebraska thing, but also specifically in response to the Nebraska thing. Like, no, you can't play non-conference games. No, sorry.
Look, I understand them not wanting anything to come in and, I guess, dirty up the conference in terms of the virus.
You don't want anyone to bring a Baby Ruth into your swimming pool. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But there are testing to make sure that doesn't happen, but that's, whatever. It's done. And we don't need to focus on it until it happens to Ohio State. And I didn't mean to put that out there. But I was on Mark Rogers yesterday, and we all had to give our scores, and I may have gone 38-20, but I don't recall.
I hate it when you and I are this close, because it's like last week I think we were 4 points off from each other. This week it sounds like we're both close. This week we're like 6 points off from each other. I mean, like, it's just 7 points off. Yeah, I mean, this makes me uncomfortable because I feel like you're not right that often. So that means if I'm too close, am I standing in the wrong place?
I was right about Michigan, though. I got the boys in blue right. I got Penn State wrong.
If I had known for sure that Minnesota was going to be missing half of its offensive line and pretty much all of its special teams, I probably would have picked that game differently.
Should have, but you didn't. All right, that'll wrap this show up, because now we have to go record our weekly Patreon preview show of the weekend's games, which we always enjoy, and talking about the old college football, right, Tom?
Indeed. You can subscribe at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly and become a member there. You get it. We do at least one members only show per week during the season, and then usually find some other fun stuff to throw out there for people who are members and who are supporting us there to be able to enjoy that we don't just put out on the regular feed. And as I mentioned off the top, be a good time to join Buckeye Scoop. Just saying, like, got the recruiting stuff this week that is, I mean, this is potentially going to change the next half decade or so of Ohio State football if they land some of the players that they're looking at potentially being able to land. And also, there's the Penn State game, and we're going to be there. We're going to have someone in the press box on Saturday, which is not something that every Ohio State media outlet is going to be able to say. So this would, of all the weeks to join Buckeye Scoop, this might be literally the best one yet. So you can sign up at buckeyescoop.com. It is the price of a lousy chain store pizza, without tax, without tip, without delivery fee, like just the crappy crust and like ragu sauce and shredded cheese. Like, that's it. You can spend your money on that, or you can get a month of Buckeye Scoop. So it seems like a pretty easy decision to me, but what do I know?
And then who's going to be on the morning scoop on Friday?
We're going to have a Tony Gerdeman on. We're going to do a little bit of a preview for the weekend's games. We're going to do a little of probably a little more Buckeyes Penn State preview, but also looking at some other games around the Big Ten and looking at all the fun to come this weekend.
I can't wait to listen.
I can't wait to record.
All right, that'll do it, because we've got 16 other shows to record today. So thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for watching, who are watching on YouTube and the other avenues that we have. We will talk to you guys later. Before the game, and then after the game, and also Friday. So we'll talk to you in like 10 minutes. We'll see you guys later.
You'll never be rid of us.